I don't draw from the Bible very often, but I was reading one of these Gnostic writings about Hermes. And in this particular writing, he was talking about Jesus in conversation with Nicodemus. And they just touched on it very briefly, but I went into it and I looked at it. So this is what's going on. There was a man, and I didn't take this, I kind of rewrote it a little bit here. Got rid of the thous and these and arts and such. There was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, who came to Jesus by night and said to him, Rabbi, we know you are a teacher from God, for no one can do these miracles that you do except God be with him. Mm-hmm. And let me give you a little bit of background, because I often get Pharisees confused with Sadducees. And every time I come across this, I have to look it up. So the difference between the two is that the Sadducees were very literal in their interpretations. Very literal. And the Pharisees took a more, you could say, a more enlightened approach. If you're familiar with the Kabbalah, that would be Pharisees. But apparently it was beyond them, because Jesus said to him, I say to you, except a person be born again, they cannot see the kingdom of God. Key point here, born again. Now, this does not mean that I'm baptized and now I follow all of the writings of Jesus, because Jesus didn't write anything down. It's all hearsay. Jesus didn't write anything down. But when he's talking about born again, we have to keep in mind what was going on at that time, because you had other religions as well. And when you get into these mystery schools, and everybody likes to say Jesus went to the East and he was taught the mysteries and everything. Well, if that were true, then Jesus is not talking about baptized and everything else. He is, but he isn't. Because to be born again in this life, in the life that you're in right now, to be born again means you have to let go of the old life. And that's what he's talking about, is letting go of the old life. You have to think differently. You have to live differently. And so Nicodemus, not understanding what he's saying, says, how can a man be born when he is old? Can he enter the second time into his mother's womb and be born? Now, this is a reference to some of the practices in the mystery schools. Because in the mystery schools, it's a goddess that cleanses them. How they are born again. They would go into these caves, into these caverns, these catacombs, and that was a representation of the female. You had these trials you had to go through. They could have been questions, I don't know. But they had these trials. It's like when Jesus went out into the desert to cleanse. That's what he's talking about by being born again. You go out into the desert, or you go in one of these caverns through one of these rituals, and the idea is to shed all this stuff that doesn't work for you. And so Jesus answers him and says that except a person be born of water and of the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of God. That which is born of flesh is flesh, and that which is born of spirit is spirit. Now, couple of things here. Water is always represented a cleansing. It's symbolic of cleansing. When you're baptized, it's a cleansing. Water was something very common to wash away all the filth, in a manner of speaking. And we also had one of our spirit teachers coming through and telling us that the body has its own memory. When the soul leaves the body, all those memories of the body go into the earth. And such. That is the flesh. But what is the spirit? Because what was the spirit then is not what is the spirit now. Now, water also is representative of the consciousness. And the thing we have to keep in mind with the consciousness is most people like to think that consciousness is the mental aspect, but it's not. It's mental and emotional. Some of this making sense so far? Yes? All right. So, any comments or questions?
I have a couple.
Sure.
I heard a tape on Casey, and he explained where Jesus went when he was growing up before he came back to die. And it said that he went like to India and different places like that, and he really studied all the religions. And he implements all of the religions. And so I guess he is, I don't want to say Casey said this, but I'm saying this. All roads lead to all road leads to the source. I'm not gonna say Jesus because he's a teacher and a prophet like everybody else. So my understanding. And so Jesus was a Jew, he wasn't no Christian. I don't know why everybody wanna make him one. But and I don't know, so, and the only other thing is, when Abraham and Lazarus died. And he was taken to the bosom of Abraham. He remembered everything. So I don't understand then how it was left in the ground, because he took everything with him but his body. He remembered how he was mistreated by the rich man. He remembered he was told to go back and asked by the rich man to go take his brothers a message. Now he was dead, but he was in the bosom of Abraham. So myself, from that scripture alone, I think when we die or leave these bodies behind, we take everything except the body. So we remember everything that was said, done. So I don't understand that first part you said, and Edgar Casey, I think it's his name. It's a tape out. Got a bunch, but this one explains where Jesus went, what Jesus learned, and what Jesus taught, which makes a whole lot of sense. But people did turn around. The man that was trying to teach us all roads lead to the source, it made him a person that we're supposed to worship. That's not what he intended.
Exactly.
Never intended that. And so many people are just off because of that. And but all roads lead to the source. So I don't know what can be what. I mean, in the end, all roads lead to the source.
Exactly.
So he's made it so easy. What did he say? He didn't say it, but I'm gonna say it. A blind man couldn't be lost. That note should be lost. I don't understand, but anyway, that's it, I just want to say on those 2 points you made that our memory and all of that stay in the ground.
No.
Abraham's didn't,
Nope. The body,
but you said it went to the ground.
body's memory
What does that mean then? Tell me the
means
difference.
we've got two aspects here. We have the flesh aspect, which is the body.
Mhm,
It's its own thing because he says the flesh is the flesh.
mhm,
So the flesh has its own thing going on.
mhm,
Then we have the mind here. Some
mhm.
people call it the spirit, but it has its own thing going on. And
I
when
call
one,
it the soul, I'm sorry.
pardon?
I call it the soul.
Okay,
Our
that's
soul
fine.
is our will,
That's-
our mind, and our emotion. We're body, soul, and spirit.
All that goes with you. When you walk out of this,
Yeah,
all that goes with you. All those memories, those experiences, all that goes with you.
right. So what were you talking about that's going in the ground? The memories that's going in the
The
ground?
body, everything associated with the body. You know how they talk about muscle memory?
Yeah,
Okay, that's what I'm referring to.
so we don't remember how to play piano when we get over there.
Oh, yeah, we exist. See, we exist in our mind.
Okay,
We,
I'm good.
when we do the piano bit, as you said, that's in the mind.
That's
It's-
muscle memory to me.
Okay,
You can do that without thinking about it. It's like going outside driving my car. That's muscle memory to me. Now, I might be wrong.
it is.
That riding a bike is muscle memory. So we forget all that when we die.
No, I didn't say you forget all of it.
It's like all your aches and pains and.
Aches, pains, the body remembers all of
Okay,
that.
I can agree with
The
you.
body remembers all of that.
And so when we die, we don't remember any of that. I'm trying to figure out what you were saying goes into the ground. What memories are going into the ground? I don't get it.
Like she said, aches
Our
and
aches and
pains, all of that stuff that the body produces. Now, mind you, when it gets cold, my hands get stiff. It gets a little colder, they start to hurt a little bit, so I have to put on a pair of gloves. That's the body's memory. That's the body happening. It's not my mind.
It
It's
would be
the
our-
body connecting to the mind through the brain.
So it could be like our gender, our sex, our
Exactly.
color, our race, those things don't matter anymore. We finally grow up. Cause they shouldn't matter here, but they do. Though when we get over there, we forget that we were a white man or a black woman. Those things fall away. That might be the memory that you're talking about.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. They don't fall away right away because we've got all that stuff imprinted in us.
okay,
But eventually that all falls away.
okay,
Eventually that all falls away.
okay.
Okay, so are we on the same page now?
I'm trying to get there, but I'm closer because when you said it all went to the grave, Abraham and Lazarus and the rich man came to me. It's like, well, it didn't go to the grave because he's standing over there in the paradise, remembering everything that this rich man ever did to him and didn't do for him. So I just needed clarification.
No, that's fine. Ask questions.
Mhm.
Good job. Because if you don't understand, then I'm wasting my time, I'm wasting your time,
Mhm.
especially your time. That's just wrong.
I have a
So,
question.
yes,
You said the spirit back then is not the same as the spirit now. How is that? Isn't the
well,
spirit
I was
spirit?
getting to that. I was getting to that. Spirit is breath.
Mhm.
Spirit is breath. And we interpret spirit today as being souls. That's why you hear me often saying souls instead of spirits. But spirit is breath. Breath is life. What permeates everything? Breath. Everything that's alive breathes in some fashion. Everything breathes, yes.
once again, I'm sorry, but
That's fine.
in Genesis, it tells us that when God formed man, he breathed into him and he became a living soul. A living soul. His breath that he breathed into him was his spirit, but that caused us to be living souls. So to me, we're
Mhm.
three,
You're right so
body,
far.
soul, and spirit.
Yeah, yeah.
And so our souls, our mind, our will, and our emotion. And the spirit is, I think we want to make it like oxygen, but it's not. It's the breath of God
Mm,
that's in us.
mhm.
And then we know what our body is, but so to me, you cannot, for me, interchange a spirit and a soul because they're different. One is the breath of God, and one is when we became alive because God used his breath to make us living souls, our will, our minds, and emotions.
When you said he breathed his spirit,
That's what he said.
breath,
Mhm. And we
I didn't
became
say,
a
I
living
didn't say
soul.
air.
No,
I said breath.
right.
When he breathed his spirit, his breath into us, we became living souls.
That's
You're
right.
right.
That's right.
You had it correct.
Mhm.
You had it correct. Spirit still means breath.
Right.
And so, but in today's language, they interchange spirit and soul.
How?
It's,
Why?
I can't answer that. I can't answer that. All I can say is when they say spirit messages, they're referring to messages from souls. So,
Okay, I'm just,
but you are correct in the way you were interpreted. Yes, that's the way I interpret it as well.
okay.
So that's what I was saying, where when he said that spirit was different then as it is today. Spirit is breath, because he goes on to say, marvel not that I said to you, you must be born again. The wind blows where it lists or where it goes, and you hear the sound of it, but you don't know where it comes from. You know, winds howl. You've heard the winds howl. So is everyone that is born of the Spirit, breath, alive. So is everyone that is alive. You see them, you hear them, but you don't know where they came from. You don't know where they're going. Making sense so far? Any comments or questions? Okay, so Nicodemus said to him, how can these things be? And Jesus replied, are you a master of Israel and do not know these things? Meaning that, remember what I said about the Kabbalah? The Kabbalah comes from, it's the higher teachings of the Judaic religion, the esoteric teachings. And Jesus was familiar with those. All the esoteric teachings pretty much say the same thing. And Nicodemus, being a Pharisee, he assumed that he knew these things, but he didn't. They didn't teach it. So Jesus says, we speak what we know and testify to what we have seen. And you have received not our witness. Now, that's in a lot of writings too, including spiritualism. They come to us in our seances and they teach. They came to us in through different prophets, clairvoyants, soothsayers, however you want to put it, seers. They came and they sent their message, and we didn't believe it. We didn't accept it. And Jesus is saying the same thing. It's written in the Quran as well. We sent these people to you and you didn't listen to them. And that's what he's referring to. And he says, if I told you of earthly things and you did not believe me, how shall you believe if I tell you heavenly things? If you don't buy the basic concepts, and just to demonstrate that, in today's lingo, that's known as disinformation, misinformation, conspiracy, he's saying the same thing, different lingo. See, that's the thing, the language, it changes over time. So, my question to you is, what might spiritual things be? Okay, Beth is over here chuckling to herself. So let's hear some ideas.
Okay, an experience. It's just not words for it, especially when I'm sitting here half brain dead. An experience not felt before and not explained by man, or not by those who are around you, or but in which you feel a greater understanding or a connection to something beyond.
Sounds good.
How's that?
That's
Did I do
good.
good? How'd I do?
You did.
How about you,
You
Diane?
did well.
What are spiritual things?
On a word.
Okay,
I have an answer.
Okay, I'm sorry.
okay,
Emotions,
okay.
emotions and love and things like that.
Love
Feelings.
word.
That's kind of where it's going to too.
Okay. Did you have something to add, Diane?
When I say unworldly, I just mean things that go beyond our five senses.
Mm-hmm.
We can't use our five senses on anything spiritual. I
Okay.
mean, afterwards, you still can't use your five senses, because it's always above our five senses. Even people that has gone to the other side, near death, they say there's so many other senses to add these five. We don't know what unless you had a near death experience. And even then, you might not know what that person saw, heard, or felt. It's just unworthy. It's out of this world. And we can even go back to your meditation table.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't care for it, and I don't like it. But it doesn't make it not spiritual, because it was unworthy. So we have to put it in a category that we want it in. So that could lead to unworthy. So then do we make it good, bad, or evil, or holy? I don't know. You can't, because it's unworthy. Everybody's different and everybody's on their own path. You're talking, you're one person. Right now I'm talking, and it's only one of me. But everybody that's hearing me is hearing something different. Because it's being filtered through your upbringing, your history. And even though I'm saying the same thing, everybody that hearing my voice or hear your voice, we don't hear the same thing. And that to me has to be spiritual. So I don't that is hard to decipher, but it's, out of everything you've been through in your life, you filter every word I say. I filter every word you say and everybody else. So would that be unworldly, spiritual, to a certain degree? Anything we can't touch and explain. I hate to say explain, but.
That works.
Mhm.
That works. What are your thoughts, Sandy?
Well, my feeling was that a simple, explanation would just be purer, higher thought and the absence of negativity. And, I guess, and I think, I know Diane said unworldly, but I also feel like it's otherworldly.
Yeah.
So I'm that's probably interchangeable, but that's all good. But I just, I, the higher, purer thought was what came to mind.
Okay.
What was your question?
They're all good. What's spiritual? They're all good.
Who was this lady up here?
This is Sandy.
Sandy, I don't mean anything by this, but you can't have spiritual on a lower negativity. Wouldn't that still be spirits?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We're the ones to determine what's good or evil. You determine what's good or evil,
Right.
just like Beth does and
Yeah.
Sharon does. We all, each of us,
Yeah.
determine what's good and evil.
Yeah.
Because left on its own, it simply is.
What is spiritual?
Now, here's some things to consider. One of the things that Jesus did a lot of was heal people. And when he healed on the Sabbath, and the Sabbath was a big thing, still is for some people, it's a big thing. When he healed on the Sabbath, he got in trouble for it.
Mhm.
They say Jesus was a prophet. They say he was, well, let me see, where is it here? Let me see here. I got it. A teacher from God.
Mhm.
He did all those things. And he was condemned for all of it. He was condemned for all of it. So when he said, how are you going to believe this simple stuff? Or how are you going to believe this higher stuff when you can't get the simple stuff? Make sense? So when he's talking about this being born again, and Lazarus makes a good example of that. If we take it in a different way, with the rituals that were done in those particular times, with going into the cavern, the way the symbolic death took place was that the initiate would fast. I forget how long, a few days, a week, I don't know, but they would fast. And you know what happens when you are deprived of food? You get delirious. That's the point, is to become delirious, because through your delirium, you make your connection with the source. So they would go down into these caverns, these catacombs, and, that's Mother Earth, the womb, Mother Earth. So they go down into the womb, a different type of womb, and they have these experiences. And what's to say Lazarus didn't get lost during one of those instances?
Lazarus was dead.
Well, he was dead,
Mhm.
but not necessarily dead in the way that we would interpret it.
Mhm.
This is just supposition.
Okay.
This is just supposition. Because everything that's written about Jesus is hearsay. You have to remember that. It's hearsay. Because Luke, was it Luke and Timothy, walked around talking to people. They interviewed people. Oh, they did a biography. They interviewed people just like they do today. They interviewed people. They took all of this stuff down. And then they, afterwards, they put it all together. And this is what they came up with. That's why Matthew and Luke are very similar. They should be. They interviewed a lot of the same people. So just in supposition, let's say Lazarus was in one of these tunnels, and one of these openings happened to have been blocked off. And Jesus had to roll the stone off for whatever reason. You know, it was blocked off for whatever reason. Yes.
May I make a point?
Yes.
I'm not talking about that Lazarus that he called back from the grave.
Okay.
There's another Lazarus.
Oh.
About the rich man and Lazarus. What a rich Lazarus, he was poor, and he would go to the rich man's house and beg every day, and he wouldn't give him anything. And then when he died, the rich man also died, but the rich man didn't go to paradise. So when we're that Lazarus, I can agree with what you're saying, but I'm talking about a whole different Lazarus. But they're both probably they're both in the four Gospels. You just have to figure out where it is. It could be Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Both of the stories is in those books. When Jesus called that Lazarus back from the grave, I can agree with what you're saying. But the other Lazarus that died and went to paradise, and he could remember everything, because the Lazarus that you're talking about, it don't say nowhere in the Bible he remembered anything. It doesn't say that. And I'm not saying the Bible is true, because the Bible was written by folks that decided what they wanted to say and what they wanted to do. And King James translated his, and whoever else translated theirs, and that's human beings. You know, so long they would say this is the roadmap to heaven. How can that be true if it's written by man? I mean, we know it was inspired by God, but how many of the Holy Spirit, how many people didn't have their fingers in it for whatever reason? And when you put your fingers in stuff, it's always for your good. So that's probably where the spiritual part come in at, so you could rightly divide that foolishness. It says for us to study to show ourselves approved, rightly dividing the word of God, that you can rightly divide, because we can hear everything. But if you can't rightly divide what's true, and once again, what's true for me not be true for you, you might not be on the same road I'm on. Our journey's not the same. So I think that's where trying to convert people kind of gets off, because you might be trying to convert them to what you believe, and that's not their path. But once again, that's my own opinion. But if you could, I'm talking about a different Lazarus.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm not familiar with that particular story.
You want me to find it?
So no, it's fine. I believe. I vaguely remember reading about it. It's just not something that's prominent in my mind.
The spirit of Abraham
So-
took him to paradise, because that's what a long time ago heaven was called, paradise. And he could see back, and he could see the rich man, but the rich man wasn't where he was. Now, was he in a hell? I don't know. But he remembered everything the rich man ever did to him. Then the rich man still had the nerves and the audacity to ask this poor man, please, go tell my brother, first dip your hand in some water and bring it to me, and then go tell my brothers don't come to this place. What the devil?
Yeah, yeah,
You still
yeah. Sounds like something that would be in Mark, because that's a Gnostic writing.
say, what the devil was that about? Anyway, that's the Lazarus I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I can agree with what you were talking about. That Lazarus could have been, I don't know, could have been just passed out unconscious, I don't know. He said Jesus wept because the people didn't believe. I don't know. I just wanted to put that in there.
So, well, thank you for correcting me. So anyway, let me see here. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. So, Sandy, what are your thoughts?
Well, very interesting um conversation. I am not I'm sure I'm not a reader of the Bible these days, so I learned things as a child and everything, but so I will, I accept what's being said because like you said, I have not read those particular things in any recent time. But um I found it, I mean, I think it's very interesting. I do feel well, like Diane said too, that we are, of course, we're all on our own journey, so we cannot be compared to each other because there is none. And I also kind of have felt like sometimes, and this is just my own observation, that um, where Jesus is concerned, I think sometimes people focus more on the messenger than the message. And I think that you get very lost in the message when you put more emphasis, and not to say any disrespect for his journey and what he went through and all of that. No disrespect. But I think people lose context when that's all you do is that side of this and you don't follow the message. So that's just my own feeling. So anyway,
Good,
so yeah, it's good. Good.
good, good. And Beth, what are your thoughts?
Just that, in my cynical opinion, the Bible should be renamed to the parables of Jesus. Or, I just think, I always liked when my father would do something from the actual book of parables, because they're being honest about it. This is a parable. So Jesus is a parable. He's telling a story to make a point. I think a lot of those writings are so to make a point, and like you are so fond of saying, people take it so literally. It's like, no, they're making a point. Who knows if it really happened? They're making a point, and that they're losing the message, as Sandy said. You lose the message if you're not thinking of this as a parable. Someone's making a point.
Exactly.
Because I love to tell stories to make a point.
Exactly. That's what born again is all about. Those those rituals, those stories. Born again. Because when you're born again, it implies that okay, you left this life, this old life that you led is dead. That's the symbolic death. This old life that you led is dead. And to be born again, Nicodemus was familiar with some of it, but he didn't have, it sounded as though he didn't have firsthand knowledge of it, but he heard of it. Or otherwise, he wouldn't have mentioned the mother's womb, because that was the whole point of going into these catacombs. For this ritual was to go into the mother, a different mother, the Mother Earth, to go through these experiences. And when you're in delirium, you can have some vivid experiences. And you're fighting against yourself. And what is it that you're fighting against? Remember when I told you that I wrote to myself and I said, Philip, I feel like a second-class citizen. And I responded and said, Philip, try letting go of your old life and grasping your new life. Born again. That's what this is all about. Born again. So, what are your closing thoughts, Diane?
I think we're born again more than once.
Oh.
You can be born again and when you come into some new knowledge and you take that on, you're born again. It's not just a one-time thing, you're born again and then Jesus
Absolutely.
said that, the works that I do greater shall you do. So the example I believe Jesus was trying to set that we are so enamored with, is he saying you can do the same thing? And he gave us the blueprint of how to do it. But instead, we got stuck on him doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we sit and do, not all of us, sit and do no work except allow someone else to teach us what we should believe and think. It's like the news. I can remember the news when I was younger. It was for critical thinking that you could reason out what's going on. Now, any news you look at, they tell you what happened, why it happened, and then tell you how you're supposed to feel about it. I don't understand that. I can think for myself. I can see all the details and get my opinion. Now, that might not be yours, but I don't want your opinion. That's one thing I never want to lose is a right to make my own decisions. So, we're gonna be born more than once. And if we don't get stuck on Jesus as a person, because he was probably just a higher master, he mastered what he was supposed to do in this life, and we can do the same thing. Everybody gets stuck right there. I mean, would that be a form of, I hate using this word lately, but it's what it is. Would that be just a form of evilness or deceit that people would get stuck on Jesus instead of stuck on the works that Jesus did and we do them? Back to what you said at the very beginning, if we would get what Jesus did, we would be doing what we should do for other people. That's what you said. What we do, we should be doing for other people. Now, if we believe what Jesus is teaching, and not get stuck on him being a person we cannot be, everything we do would be for other people.
Mm.
So that we would to be great, be the servants of all. But folks that want to be great want to have servants.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, they would call that idolatry.
And they missed it. Because within their main ones want to teach us about Jesus. Ones that had the books rewritten. And I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna be done. Every book that's out there written, that people read and study, it was written by a human being. That's their opinion. You get done reading it, you still should have your own opinion about what you just read.
Precisely.
Just because you read it doesn't make it true or false.
Precisely. Yeah. Yeah. And that's idolatry. People idolize Jesus. Even in the stories, he was idolized. And he kept telling them, no, I'm just like you. Every time he said, I am the Son of Man, he's telling everybody, I was born from a woman just like you. That's what he's saying. That's what that meant. And then we've got these people, oh, he's the Son of God. They raised him up. Did they raise up the Son of Man? No. They raised up the Son of God. Difference between the two, Son of Man and the Son of God? Son of God is on a pedestal. We can't be like that. Son of Man, we can be like. And that's what Jesus was trying to tell everybody. Why do you marvel at this? You can do what I do.
Greater.
And great. Exactly. Exactly. So, Connie, what are your last thoughts?
Honestly, I really don't have any.
Okay. How about you, Sharon?
I don't really have any either. I liked all the input. It's been really good. Because it's a different way of, it just kind of explains so much. Absolutely. So it's good.
Good, good, good.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna leave you with this. Jesus said that no one can ascend who has not descended.
Mhm. Okay.
And this is right in line with all these so-called pagan writings that talk about these different levels, Saturn, rings of Saturn, coming down to get here, and with each one, the descent of Ishtar. There's all kinds of writings, but it's the same thing. You cannot ascend until you first descend. In other words, we begin great. And then we get full of crap.
Shit happens.
And when we get rid of that crap, we become great, but in a different way. When we are born, we're born innocent. It's the same thing. The further in life we get, the more baggage we have. Until we learn to let go of this baggage, and by letting go of that baggage, you are that part of you is dying off, and you are being born again. Many times, as Diane put it, many times. So I want to thank all of you for your input in allowing me to share this with you. And this is a good time for everyone.